What is going on, everybody? It is Zach Nur here, host for Blast Beats, episode number 3, joined by my co-host every week, Chris Spooner. How you doing, Spoon?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Zach?
Doing well. It's been a little bit of a crazy week, work-wise, but we've had some fantastic music to keep us going throughout the week. A fantastic weekend of albums and songs and singles and EPs that have been dropped in the rock, metal, pop punk, hardcore scenes, whatever you like. Fantastic to keep us going. And we'll kick things off with a band that is old but new to me. Very, very big fans of them. Memphis May Fire. They have released 3 singles since June 4th. The most recent being this past weekend on August 27th, Bleed Me Dry. Those 3 include, as I just said, Bleed Me Dry. The first one on June 4th was called Blood and Water. And the second one on July 13th was Death Inside. Um, so, Spoon, I know when in our conversation leading up to the pod, um, I had asked you about them because obviously as I said, I'm a very big fan, but I wanted to make sure if you had heard them and you had not necessarily you had a little exposure, right?
Yeah, I had heard the first two singles, the most recent singles that they had dropped, but I hadn't gone back and listened to any of their older stuff until you brought it up.
Yeah. So one of the things that I loved, and I mean this is going back to like 2012, is when this album came out, is Challenger. Challenger by Memphis May Fire. And I actually own this album on a beautiful bone white vinyl. I got it for Christmas from, I want to say, my grandparents, my stepmom's parents. They gave me that, and they gave me a shirt of the lead singer, Matty Mullins, to which everybody says when I wear the shirt, "Hey, is that you on your shirt?" No, it's not me on the shirt. I do not lead Memphis May Fire. But yes, this came out, June 26, 2012. So a week after my birthday, or 10 days after my birthday. That's crazy. Um,
Nice.
and yeah, very, very heavy, very much metalcore, post-hardcore in the sense, the album before in 2011, The Hollow, a little heavier, if we're being honest, and that one had a bit more of a flow, a theme. All the album's called The Hollow. Every single song on the album started with so it was all like nouns. So it was the sinner, the unfaithful, the victim, the abandoned. Um, but then we get to 2014, 2 years in between albums, and they love the 25th and 26th. Almost all their albums have been released on those 2 days. Very interesting. Um, but this was a very, very noticeable shift. And this is when I started to kind of back up a bit. Um, they got a bit lighter, and that's not a bad thing. That's never a bad thing. Never a
Mhm.
bad thing. Um, but my problem more was that it was getting too preachy, and that's not necessarily what I listen to music for. And by too preachy, I definitely think that it can be done in a different, and by that it can be done in a different way. Um, you can make points about being a good person, or being a Christian, or being whatever religion that you happen to be in. And I only label Christian because these guys are Christian. Um, but you don't have to shove it down people's throats. And Unconditional in 2014 was the start of that. There's literally a song on here called Pharisees. Um, and I mean, it's a really good song. It's pretty heavy, but it's it got to be a bit too on the nose. And then I haven't even listened to some of the other albums. What are they? This Light I Hold and Broken. I've never listened to them. I've never listened to them.
Yeah. See, I when you brought up Memphis May Fire, I hadn't listened to them other than the two singles that they had recently dropped. So yesterday, I went back and listened to their entire discography from Sleepwalking all the way through Broken. I didn't listen to the EPs. I just listened to the studio albums. And yeah, my takeaway was pretty similar to yours. You know, they started out really heavy, Sleepwalking, The Hollow, Challenger, all pretty heavy albums. Personally, I kind of liked The Hollow more than Challenger or Sleepwalking. I think that was my favorite of their releases. And then, like you said, they got a little bit lighter with Unconditional, and you started to really hear those themes. Um, and then This Light I Hold and Broken is kind of where the discography lost me. It's where they got into, really heavy into their cleans. I think either This Light I Hold or Broken, I can't remember which, was entirely cleans. And it just kind of, that's not what I want for my metalcore. Like I love clean singing. Don't get me wrong. I listen to many genres that are, entirely clean singing. But if I'm in a metalcore mood, I need those harsh vocals to kind of balance it. And those were completely absent. And Matty Mullins has a great voice. Love his clean voice, but I don't think it can carry an entire album. So with the two singles that they've dropped recently, it sounds like they're getting back to kind of that classic metalcore sound of balancing the harsh vocals and the clean vocals. And I'm excited by what I've heard from the now three singles that they've dropped. I hope a new album is on the way soon, and I hope that those three songs are indicative of what we're going to get from that album.
Yes, and it should be pointed out, as I did say, that I mean, I'm expecting something. No album has been announced yet, but three three singles in 3 months is pretty indicative that they have something pretty big on the way. But it's interesting, as you were talking about, and I was pulling these up on Wikipedia, obviously not the greatest source of information, but it's interesting to see the genre change as that well the genre labels change as they go from album to album. So you have The Hollow, that is labeled as a metalcore post-hardcore album.
Mhm.
Challenger, metalcore post-hardcore. Unconditional is just metalcore. There's no secondary qualifier. This Light I Hold, metalcore hard rock. And then Broken is new metal, alternative metal, and pop rock. So very interesting to see that. Now, and I agree with you, Chris, the three albums, or I mean the three singles that I've listened to that they have released since June have been great. Much more in tune with what I was accustomed to listening to. And this is one of my bands that I've seen like 2 or 3 times at Warped Tour too. I mean, I've seen them, I've met them. They're great guys. But it's just something that I wanted to get back to the heavy feel. It dropped out, and again, there's plenty of ways to push forth a positive message without shoving it down a throat, and that's where it got to the point with me where I was just like, look, I don't need like I don't need another like 45 minutes to an hour of like what of religion outside of whatever. I've already got that. I want something that's separate. I want something whatever. Show me that you're good people and all that if you want to push that message, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, as I said, through like quoting scripture and going that hardcore into it. Um, and
And
that's
I
where
I kind of feel like that's something that maybe he's recognized, Matty, that is. I know he has a solo career that is kind of taken off for him in the Christian rock world. It's from what I know of it.
yeah,
I'm not a huge follower of his. And I haven't listened to his solo work, but from what I can gather from a couple of interviews that I've watched, he's got a strictly Christian rock side hustle that he's doing.
yeah,
So
yes, he
maybe that's
has.
kind of him separating the Christian element and the metalcore.
Yeah, and I hope that's how that stays. And there's quite a few artists. I think another great example of that is Dance Gavin Dance and Tillian. Tillian does has a bunch of his own solo stuff that he keeps separate from Dance Gavin Dance because it does not mesh. But Tillian is a fantastic vocalist and has so much range that he can afford to do that stuff on his own, but also not getting in the way of the rest of Dance Gavin Dance, especially with how big and popular they are. Um, but yeah, so let's keep on getting into some new music from the 27th. So we'll start over with you, Chris. What were some of the some of the bigger releases that you had your eyes on from this past weekend?
I listened to a ton of new music over the weekend. I think I listened to something like 20 different albums that dropped. And for me, the kind of the big five that really caught my ear and um, have been added to my Spotify playlist. Um, Jinjer, their new album Wallflowers, loved it. I wasn't feeling it the first time that I listened to it, but the second spin, I it really started coming together for me. And Ginger's one of those bands that the the individual parts can sometimes be better than what they coalesce into. Tatiana's got a great voice, and all of the drums and bass and guitarists, they're all incredible at their instruments. But sometimes it can feel a little disjointed, and that's kind of what I got from it from the first spin. Um, but the second time around, it started coming together for me, and I think that's going to be one that I is going to grow on me as I listen to it more and more.
Nice,
The,
nice.
the next one that I listened to was a band called Toxic Ruin. Um, their drop called Nightmare Eclipse. Really enjoyed that. It was really heavy, really kind of thrashy, and I'm a thrash guy at heart, and that it was so good to hear that. I kind of have gotten away from the thrash metal as of late. I've kind of gotten more into, deathcore, death metal, metalcore. But at my heart, I'm a thrash kid, and
Yeah.
uh, I love those thrash metal albums. Um, Next one, and I'm gonna butcher the name of this band, and I apologize in advance. Thyrfing. They dropped an album called Venagander, and again, I probably butchered that. Um, but it's your classic Viking metal. It's got some orchestral strings in the background, um, driving guitars, powerful vocals. Uh, it's all sung in, I think it's Swedish, Finnish maybe.
Ooh, okay, okay.
So I have no idea what they're saying. I loved it. It was a great album. Um, but probably my favorite, other than Ginger, that I listened to was a band called Ex Dio. They're released the 13 Years of Nero. They're a melodic death metal band that has members of the band Cataclysm, if
Okay.
anybody's familiar with that. And they, like I said, they're melodic death, and they focus on history. And this album specifically focuses on the Roman Emperor Nero and the his downfall within the Roman Empire. It's absolutely fantastic, and it hits on both my love of metal and my love of history. I'm a big history nerd, so that was a really fun album to listen to.
Yeah, I was actually so I just pulled up XDO on Google Chrome, and it looks like their entire discography is based off of the history of the Roman Empire specifically. Um because their albums are Romulus, Caligula, The Immortal Wars, and then as you were just talking about, the 13 Years of Nero. So that's definitely something I'm gonna have to look into because that sounds incredible.
Yeah, they're
Um
they're not a band that I was familiar with before I saw this drop. So I'm gonna have to go back now that I know that it's all about the Roman Empire.
Yeah,
Gonna have to listen to
yeah,
all of it and see if the rest of it jives with me as well as this one did because I really loved this album.
yeah. I can only imagine how. I mean, Caligula's got to be insane because Caligula was insane in general.
Correct.
Um, yeah, they're a Canadian death metal band. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I've never heard. And this is why we do this. This is exactly why we do this, so we can discover new music, inform you guys about new music, and continue to discover new things each and every week. That's what we're here for. One of the many things we're here for. So yeah, those were all awesome. I did listen to some of those as well. I definitely got one spin of the Jinjer album, and I will admit. So I do believe I talked about this in the last episode where we were talking about shows and some of my histories of going to um other types of shows outside of rock and metal. But I am a very big hip hop fan and was anxiously awaiting the release of Donda from Kanye. Um, I listened to all of my music for the podcast on like Friday, Saturday, and then I had a span at work where I had in 28 hours I worked 17,
Oof.
and I missed the release of Donda because I was passed out hard. Like I have not slept that good in a while. Um and I since then I've woke up and almost exclusively listened to that. But the one thing I have listened to is Glow On by Turnstile, their new album, their third studio album. I have never listened to Turnstile before. I've heard their name many times from Roadrunner Records. Um I loved it. I thought it was incredible. And not even it's very disjointed. And you put this on the Twitter account. You tweeted this on the Twitter account. The album is very disjointed. And that's my favorite part of it. That's what I love the most. It really feels like you're sitting there and you're listening to noise, but there is some sort of like organization behind it. It's not perfect. It's not amazing. It's not mixed like incredibly well. But one thing I do love about albums and actual projects is when it flows all together in like one cohesive piece, and that's exactly what I felt from this. Um and also it's a 15 track album and it's 34 minutes.
Yeah.
Really, really, really good quick listen. You got some cowbell in there. Um,
Never go
you
wrong with the cowbell.
never go wrong with the cowbell. You got two features from Blood Orange, which is pretty sweet as well. Nice R&B group. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
I listened to it as well. I wouldn't say I'm as big a fan of it as you are, but I enjoyed it. Um, you know, I there was a lot that I loved about it. There were a lot of elements that I loved, but for me, it didn't come together as well as I think it did for you.
Yeah.
Um, there were just some parts that really felt disjointed and kind of took me out of the experience. But all in all, it was a very good punk album, and it's definitely something that I'm probably going to listen to, several times.
And I think that's the word that you just said. I haven't heard a punk album like this in a long time. This feels very 90s.
Yeah,
Um and something that hasn't really been like I don't want to say mainstream, but like just like out there as much. And I like it. I love it. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to having more of this sort of like punk sound coming back and kind of like reviving that sound. And that kind of gives me a very great segue into a wonderful pop punk album I listened to, if you would like to call it pop punk, because that's kind of a stretch as well. They're changing their sound a lot, but Grayscale released one of their or released a new album called Umbra, and I love it. Now, Grayscale, this would be the second band that they've done where, or not second band they've done. This will be the second album they've done where it's a bit different. Um, because the album before, Nella Vita, that one that one kind of strayed a bit from the path because Adornment that they released in 2018, I believe.
2017, according to
20
Wiki.
yes, 2017. That album is absolutely 100% pop punk. Nella Vita, they start using the synths a bit more. They start using the a bit more like pop-ish as opposed to punkish vibes. Umbra, though, is completely and utterly different. Um and my big thing about it is I have been on this train for a while, and I know it doesn't really fit in the punk and metal, and it definitely fits in the rock genres. We need more brass in music in the 21st century. Give me sax, give me trombones, give me trumpets, give me horns. They are incredible. They add so much punch and so much just just good feeling. There's nothing better than like listening to a really good song and then that a nice like good little sax solo kicks in and you're like, "Oh man, that hit really hard." They put the sax on like 3 or 4 or 5 songs on this album and I lost it. I was in heaven because I love that sound. Um and if we really want to go back deep into it, jazz is the driving influence behind rock. Jazz is what inspired rock and roll. So you go back to it, you have your roots, put it back in. Please use the roots, use the inspiration, use that because they're such incredible instruments. And obviously, as I said, I mean, please, if you're a death metal band, I'm not telling you to put a sax in your song. That's not gonna work. But I just love it. I love experimentation. I love instrumentation and having some of those different types of sounds, it really, really, really gives a nice, refreshing feel to some genres that maybe have gotten a bit stale, to some bands that maybe have like changed a bit and they want to like rein it back in a little bit. But I loved it. Umbra was fantastic. The 2 singles that I listened to before it came out were amazing. Um, as I said before, I'm a sucker for pop punk. So that another band that I listened to with confidence. Theirs is much more in the realms of being a pop punk album. Not nearly as much instrumentation. But yeah, they're an Australian. I have a really big thing for out bands outside of the United States. A lot of
Mhm.
Australian and Canadian and a lot of UK bands as well. Um don't know if you
Uh,
have the
oh
same
yeah, yeah, we have that in common. A lot of my music, especially nowadays, is coming from, you know, obviously Scandinavia being, you know, a death metal and black metal fan. A lot of European bands, a lot of UK bands. Um, you know, I'm a big Parkway Drive fan from
yeah.
Australia. So yeah, a lot of my music comes from outside the US.
Yeah, although I will say even though I have spent an ungodly amount of time listening to Donda, the first actual instrument that you hear on that album is a guitar. I'll take it. Uh, um, it's a really, really great riff. It's a really great beat for the riff. It's just a great riff that repeats the whole time, and it's pretty fire. Um, but yeah, it was a great week. especially for music. I don't. Do we know much about what's coming out this week? I haven't taken a look
There's
yet.
not a whole lot that's coming out on the 10th. Aborted has a new album that's coming out. It's really, really heavy, really, I guess sick is kind of the best word for it, with a band the name Aborted. Death metal. Um, Andrew WK is dropping another album this week. So if you're into that kind of, sort of punky, really party vibe, that's probably going to be a good one for you. The biggest one that I am excited about is Metallica. They're re-releasing. They're doing a re-release of the Black album, and
Okay.
it's a massive collaborative effort.
Yep.
Um, I think something like 52 different artists are on it, covering all of the songs that are on the Black album, and bands from all all over the spectrum of music, not just rock, not just metal, but pop, EDM, hip hop, country. Chris Stapleton, I believe, is on it. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, it's is out there, and all of the covers that I've heard are well, most of the covers. I don't want to say all of them, but most of the covers that I've heard are very, very different from the originals, but they really work. And it's really evident that a lot of care was taken to do these songs justice, but put these individual artists' own spin on it. And that's what I want from a cover. I want something that is true to the original, but isn't just a carbon copy of the original. And with Metallica being my all-time favorite band, I am stoked for this drop. I cannot wait to hear all of the songs and all of the different renditions of an album that I absolutely love and is probably the album that got me started on my journey into the rock and metal world and to where I am today.
Yeah. Well, you do know what comes out tomorrow, right? Senjutsu by Iron Maiden.
Right. I totally forgot about that. I
Yeah.
That's another one that I'm really looking forward to. I've never been a huge Iron Maiden fan.
Yeah, I haven't either. I mean, I obviously I've listened to the big songs. Um, it's kind of hard to not listen to those, but I know my dad. I think my dad is a bit more than I am, but I mean, this 17. I can't believe they're putting another album out. I mean, really, really and truthfully. I mean, in 2021, I thought Iron Maiden was done. Um,
So did
yeah,
I. It's kind of it's remarkable in a sense that Bruce Dickinson and the guys are still chugging, and Bruce, his voice is different than it was in the Run to the Hills days.
yeah,
It's still fantastic, and the latest single that they released in anticipation of the album has that classic Iron Maiden feel, and I'm excited for it. It's an album that I will be checking out.
oh, yep. Yeah.
Carnifex comes out
We also have
tomorrow.
Carnifex coming out
Night
tomorrow.
Flight
Carnifex,
Orchestra.
POD, the Satellite 20th anniversary. I think that's about it though. Cannabis Corpse.
Yeah, for me tomorrow, the releases that I'm looking forward to, like we've already said, Iron Maiden and Carnifex. I'm really looking forward to the Behemoth drop and the
Yeah.
Bokassa drop.
Okay. Most
Bokassa
definitely.
is a band that I just recently discovered within the last couple of weeks. But they've just got a vibe that I really enjoy. It's really kind of punky and rocky, and the name of the album that is dropping is called Molotov Rocktail.
Yeah,
That
I
tells
just
you
saw that. That's great.
that tells you right there that they're just dudes that want to have fun. They want to make fun, punchy music that doesn't take itself too seriously, and I'm all about it.
Oh yeah, and then also this week the POD Satellite 20th Anniversary Edition drops. Um, but what you were saying about the Metallica, the Black Album redrop, I have listened to, and this goes for Saturday when I will be listening to it again because college football starts and I finally get to watch my favorite team play. But the Weezer cover of Enter Sandman, I freaking loved it. Um,
I have
def-
not heard it actually.
oh, definitely a quality cover, and it's funny because Weezer has an affinity for this because on the Teal album, they covered Paranoid by Black Sabbath. And that
Really?
was my favorite song on that album. It was done so well. And that whole album, that entire album is an album of covers and a very, very broad spectrum of songs to cover. Pretty much all of them done pretty much all of them done fairly well. There may be
The
like
only
one or two misses.
the only Weezer cover that I am aware of off the top of my head is their cover of Toto's Africa.
So that's what spawned it. Um, so yeah, I want to I'll share this with you real quick because I love this album. So yeah, they did the Africa or the Africa cover, and from that spawned a wave of just incredible. So we've got Africa originally by Toto, uh, Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears, Sweet
Okay.
Dreams Are Made of This by the Eurythmics, Take on Me from Aha, Happy Together
Interesting.
by the Turtles, Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Mr. Blue Sky by ELO, No Scrubs by TLC, Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, and Stand By Me by Ben E. King.
Wow, that is a really eclectic group of songs to cover.
Yes, and it was it was incredible. Another album that I actually play that frequently. A lot of the songs in there I listen to frequently, and the fact that my place of employment loves to play their covers on their radio station all the time. So, um,
Interesting.
yeah, we like exclusively play. Although then again, we'll play Take on the standard Take on Me, but like Sweet Dreams and Africa, like we'll exclusively play the Weezer covers as opposed to the original.
That's
um,
incredible. I love it.
yeah, but no, a lot of very interesting, and I'm not after listening to Paranoid, I'm not surprised that they got tabbed to do a cover like that because Weezer just did release a metal so I didn't know this, but a lot of Weezer's albums have some sort of a like melodic theme.
Mhm.
They try to like make them all around a specific sound. And this year specifically, they've released two. Um, I forget what the one is called. It's like a sort of a greener. The cover is greener, but it's an orchestral album. They had a live orchestra play for the album, and the other one is Van Weezer, and it's their metal album, or at least their hard rock twinged album. And I mean, it fits. It fits. They do a really good job on it, and they have so much range. Rivers Cuomo's a really great guy, really cool dude, really talented individual. Um, yeah, I love Weezer. Always have, always will.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna have to check out that Teal album
yeah.
and
The
check out
Teal
those
album,
covers.
yeah, the Teal album is fantastic. I am a sucker myself for covers. I
Absolutely.
there is a series of albums from Fearless Records called Punk Goes Pop, and I have pretty much, besides maybe the first one because that was a bit outside of my time, all the rest of them. And actually, Memphis May Fire has two songs on
Mhm.
two of their various albums. Punk Goes Pop 5, they covered Grenade by Bruno Mars. And on Punk Goes 90s Volume 2, they covered Interstate Love Song by Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, I
Um,
haven't heard that one.
yeah, that song gets a little bit of flack due to a very, very cliche breakdown that they do. Um,
Huh.
um, but it's still pretty good. Um, but yeah, I mean, Pop Goes Punk. They've got or Pop Goes Punk, Punk Goes Pop. They've got 7 main title albums. Um, they have 3 acoustic albums, I believe 2 Christmas albums, and then a Punk Goes Metal, which was actually the first one they released, which is very interesting. Now that I'm looking at this, wow,
I mean,
wow,
the pop goes or punk goes pop and punk goes metal. Those albums are just staples. You know,
yeah,
I love them. They're fantastic. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to all of them, but the ones that I have, just
yeah.
incredible.
And I mean, the sounds on them have definitely changed over the years. I think the last time that I remember one that was kind of heavy was probably in 2014, and you had like August Burns Red covering Wrecking
Yeah.
Ball, Upon a Burning Body doing Turn Down for What, um, freaking Ocean's 8 Alaska. I love Ocean's 8 Alaska, and they did Drunken Love by from Beyonce, and that was like I have never heard something so grimy from something that is so like I don't even know. It was really funny because like people love that song. People love Drunken Love by Beyonce, and I look at them and I'm like, yeah, I've got this really cool like deathcore like metalcore cover of it, and they're like, what? And I play it for them, and they're like, what is this? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't even mention this. In our new music, I cannot believe I forgot to mention this. Wage War is releasing a new album. Uh,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
oh crap. I need to remember what it's called. See, this is the problem when I do this. Manic. It's called Manic. Um, they released a second song, not nearly as heavy as High Horse. Called Circle the Drain. Not bad, not bad. I do like High Horse better. Very excited for this. It's been a couple of years. Um, because yeah, the last time, oh, that was only in 2019. Are you kidding me? Pressure was in 2019. Yeah, you know what? It must have been because I was messaging you guys in the Slack chats on PFN to listen to this. Um,
You were, and I never did, and I kind of regret it from what I've heard from High Horse.
yeah,
I love that song, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to Pressure, listen to Dead Weight.
yeah.
Um,
Dead Weight. I've only ever listened to 1 or 2 songs from their debut album Blueprints, but Dead Weight is really good. And Pressure. I mean, I love Pressure. That one when that dropped. That was in the middle of me being in the bar scene, and I was hanging out with a lot of people who also listened to music like this. So we'd be at work and we'd be playing it on the touch tunes and actually being able to listen to new music. It was really good. Um, but yeah, I think that just about wraps it up.
yeah, I think so. I think that covers everything that we wanted to hit on. And
So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this week. It was nice to get back to recording. We actually had a break in recording. We had some schedules get in the way. You guys know life, that thing that we wake up to every day. But it's been about 2 weeks since we've talked, and it's been fantastic to get back into it. Um, but yeah, we both hope you enjoyed the show. And actually, there, if you want to stay in tune with us, Chris, you can tell us where they can find us.
yeah, you can follow the Blast Beats podcast account on Twitter at ATB underscore Blast Beats. You can follow me on Twitter at Spoonful of Sport. And Zach, you want to tell them where they can find you?
Oh yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Zachner, ZACHKNERR. That's my name. Don't wear it out. And please don't put me on blast on Twitter. I swear these are just my opinions on my music. Uh, um, but yeah, it would be really great to start interacting with some of you guys. We have started interacting with some of you guys through the ATB Blast Beats Twitter account, and that has been fun to kind of get some of our thoughts out during the week when we're not necessarily able to sit down, record, and get this out for you. But yeah, it's been fantastic. Episode 3 in the books, with many more to come. I've been Zach, along with my awesome co-host and friend Chris. We'll see you next week, and stay tuned and stay classy.